Meantime, there's another breaking news story now. A critical decision of the controversial plan to build a mosque right near Ground Zero. A New York City committee now meeting and deciding whether or not a 152-year-old building can be torn down that would make way for the mosque and community center. Now, we have a live camera inside the hearing room. Once we get it all set up and we can hear what's happening inside, we'll give you a peek inside of that. We haven't done it yet, but we're working on it. Now, this topic has fueled so much emotion, not just here in New York, but from our viewers across the country. We wanted to show you, take a closer look at the proposed site as it relates to Ground Zero. Here's a sample here of this. This is the location, the building, the address in question. This is 45 Place in Lower Manhattan. It used to be the Burlington Coat Factory. In fact, the day of the attacks on September 11th, part of one of the jetliners that went into the towers was found inside this building. If supporters of the mosque get their way, this building will be torn down. In its place, a 13-story, $100 million mosque and learning center. Supporters argue that the understanding between the Muslim world and the rest of America must be improved, and this is one way to do it. Critics argue the tenderness of the attacks is still far too raw for them to put a mosque only steps, they argue, from Ground Zero. We have taken 60 steps, 60 paces from the front of that building down to the intersection of Park Place and West Broadway. Behind me is 7 World Trade. That's the only building that's been rebuilt since the attacks of 9/11. 52 stories tall, a beautiful complex in Lower Manhattan. Right past it, you'll see 2 cranes that are part of the construction project underway at Ground Zero. If the mosque is built, it will not be looking into Ground Zero. But based on this perspective, half a block away, it will be right around the corner from Ground Zero. Mentioned that meeting, now a live look inside. This meeting we'll get together and we'll take a vote, 10 members, and figure out whether or not this building should be torn down and whether or not that will clear the way for the construction of a mosque in that location we just showed you. Nihad Awad is Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, otherwise known as CAIR. Sir, good morning to you and welcome here. Tim Brown's a retired New York City firefighter. Tim Brown responded to the scene in Lower Manhattan that tragic morning almost 9 years ago. Mr. Awad, why here? Why in that location?
Why not? Why not, Bill? This is America. Freedom of religion is granted to everybody, and I'm very disturbed by the fact that this community center, which is not a mosque, by the way, has been associated, and the Islamic faith, with 9/11. There has been concerted effort by a very tiny minority in New York to associate the Islamic faith, the Islamic community, with 9/11, when in fact Muslim Americans and Muslims all over the world have condemned 9/11 and the perpetrators of 9/11 consistently for 9 years, and yet 9 years later, some people trying to mesh it together to associate the Islamic faith with 9/11, and they're ignoring the fact that about 300 Muslims victims were killed in 9/11 by the terrorists.
Okay, all right. You asked me the question, why not? I'm going to get Tim Brown to answer that for us. Tim, I'll bring you in, and then I'll get back to Mr. Awad.
Well,
why not?
It's very simple, Bill. It's very insensitive to the families. It's 600 feet from Ground Zero. They are trying to leverage 9/11 and the deaths of my friends and the loved ones of my families to bring people to the Islamic faith. Now, I want to be clear that people understand that Nihad Awad is the Executive Director of CAIR, and they are an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial. You are an unindicted co-conspirator. The FBI has severed all relationships with your organization. Chuck Schumer himself, the liberal New York senator, has said that all government agencies should sever ties with your radical organization. Why are you doing the bidding for Imam Rauf? What is your relationship with
I just want to keep it focused. Gentlemen, hang on. I want to keep this focused on the mosque that's being built.
Well,
sir, you just said,
allow me.
Hang on. I will give you a chance.
Bill,
give me a moment. I'll ask the questions. Thank you. You said earlier in your answer that there is no mosque inside this learning center, when it clearly says that there will be a mosque in addition to learning centers and cultural area 2 blocks away, as we just saw from Ground Zero. Now, other than the charges that Tim Brown just laid out here, What about the sensitivity to families? What about the location you have chosen? New York City is a big place, man.
Okay.
Why here?
First of all, Mr. Brown is failing to convince the viewing audience of his point of view, and that's why he's changing the conversation to attack me personally. And that's part of the mindset that's led by this tiny fanatic group that's trying to prevent another group of Americans to exercise their religious right in America. Second, it is not insensitive. Again, it is based on the false premise.
But my question was, why not anywhere else? It's very
you know
simple
what?
here.
Bill, it's America, and if you want to prevent American Muslims from exercising their religious freedom, you are violating the constitutional rights of
that. Jim Brown, what about
second point?
Religious
no, second
freedom.
point.
You
give
give American Muslims a bad
second
name.
Point. Second point.
There are many good Muslims that you mislead.
Tim is talking about his friends. Well, there are 3,000 Americans, my fellow citizens who were killed. I'm angry about them too. I'm grieving. I'm grieving 300.
I understand both points you're making families. To Tim Brown
now.
You get the last word.
You are stirring up hysteria.
The fact that
Mr. Awad,
please,
New Yorkers are not falling for that.
Tells the whole story. Imam Ralph is not the man that he says he is.
Okay, folks, just so both of you guys know, this is not helping any of our viewers. This is so disrespectful to our audience. Mr. Awad, I gave you an opportunity. I'm asking you, please, to allow Tim Brown to answer. Mr. Brown, we have 30 seconds.
To do that.
Please.
Janet Kosha, who lost her son, her 23-year-old son, in Tower 2, walked out of the landmarks preservation hearing last week and had a heart attack. This is what Imam Ralph and Mr. Nihad are doing to the families. It is insensitive and it is intentional on their part.
Okay, gentlemen, we will continue this.
You
the
are
Imam you mentioned
the
a couple
anger
times,
of 9/11.
lives in Lower
This
Manhattan.
is misleading.
He's a Kuwaiti cleric. I'd love to bring you back on sometime. We'd actually have a conversation. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you, Tim Brown and Nihad Awad. Thank you. That vote should happen any moment now in Lower Manhattan, so we'll stay on that. And also our reporter, Lauren Green.